Sorry, I wiggled you. Hello and welcome to episode 80, I had to do it again, 3 of the Mouse Makes Knitting podcast. My name is Mandy, sometimes known as Mouse. Sleeping in her basket is Miss Poppy, who is my co-host. You may not see much of her today. She's been very busy guarding us against her arch nemesis, Little Black Cat, who's been wandering around out there all morning. So she's quite exhausted just now. It's very dark in here at the moment, and I wasn't sure whether to put the light on again, but I want to show you some yarn later, and perversely, the darker it is in general, the better the camera picks up the colours of the yarn. So I'm going to roll with it. What is it they used to say? Do not adjust your TV set. Right. I've got some things to show you, and then at the end I'm going to do a bit of a shop updatey bit, so if you're not up for that, that's fine. I'll let you know, and then you can choose to stay or go, whatever suits you. I'm going to start with my finished object because, yeah, the other thing I'm embarrassed to tell you about. So I have finished these socks. And they're coming out quite well. Do you see what I mean about the light? You can actually see the colours fairly well. These are the Winter Snowdrop. Oh my gosh. Too many words that are the same. These are the Winter Snowdrop socks that I've knit for Denise dear is running a year of the sock again. And the Snowdrop pattern, I actually wet blocked these because they have this lacy pattern. The Snowdrop pattern runs up the centre of the sock. The pattern will be linked below. It's Winter Snowdrop Socks by Sarah Morris, no H. And it's knit in my own yarn. This is my January colourway, and using West Yorkshire Spinners Nutmeg for the heels, toes and cuff. I do like to give my socks contrasting heels, toes and cuffs, but also I wanted to make sure I had plenty of yarn left. I'm not showing these off very well, am I? I had a little bit more than this. It worked out to just under 62 grams left of 100 grams. And the reason for that was that I want to put it into another project. So the leg is a little bit shorter than I would normally do. It's only about 1 centimetre shorter because it worked out neatly with the pattern repeats. I could have done another pattern repeat, but I wanted a particular amount of yarn left. As it was, I had plenty left. I could have done another, I think. Yeah, so it's an easy to remember pattern repeat. I didn't use the pattern after, I think, the second one, and it's quite effective. And obviously when it's on your foot, they open up a little bit. So the yarn I've used is my January colourway from what I'm calling my year of yarn, that's gonna be inspired each month by the prompt from Denise's year of the sock, apart from January, because I was too late January. January is Snowdrop, but I couldn't do a Snowdrop colourway because I'd already chosen a different colourway for January, which was this one, which is just simply called January. It is available in my Ko-fi shop, which is linked below, only until the last day of January, and then it won't be available anymore. But I wanted an amount left because as I'm doing a whole year's worth of yarns, I've cast on, what's it called? The Shortest Day? Yeah, The Shortest Day shawl by Christina Gordon. Tonya from Calm as a Stitch is knitting this, and she's knitting it in her Advent yarns from one of her Advents in a yarn zen, I think it might be. Not that that's really relevant, but it's an interesting thing because it's knit in the round and then you steek it. And I've never done that before. I have never in my entire life, and I've been knitting for probably a little bit more than half a century, I have never ever steeked anything unless you count putting an afterthought heel in a sock. And I do a true afterthought heel, not a forethought heel. So I do cut into it and open it up. So I thought, well, that'll be an interesting project to have a go at steeking. And also, because it's designed for Advent Minis, I can use my 12 Year of Yarn yarns, and at the end of it I'll have a wrap, a shawl, a throw, whatever you want to call it, cataloguing all the Year of Yarn yarns that I've dyed throughout the year. Not all the yarns I've dyed, because I'm dyeing other yarns, new colourways, but I intend to do something different with those. So this is all very complicated, and I feel like I should have planned it out better before I tried to explain it to you. Right, the pattern is designed for 24 either 10 or 20 gram mini skeins, or you can just do it in scraps, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to have 13, sorry, I've tied a knot and I had to sort it out. I'm going to have 13 Year of Yarn colourways. And you're probably thinking, hang on a minute, Mandy. We know maths isn't your best subject, but there are actually only 12 months in a year. And you're quite correct, there are 12 months in a year. But, and I'm not giving anything away because the list of prompts is available on Denise's Instagram. One of the month has 2 prompts. It can be Star Wars or Star Trek. And that's like trying to get me to choose between my favourite child. So I'm going to have to do 2 colourways that month because I can't do one and neglect the other. That said, later on in the year, there's a free month, I think it's November, where you can repeat any of the previous colourways, and I'm going to do an extra Star Trek one then. So I could have done Star Wars and then Trek later on, but I'm not. So I worked out how many rows you would need for each 20 gram. I'm having 13 rather than 12, so I need a few less rows. But I still wanted to make sure that I had a good 40 grams left, because obviously it's not very obvious at all the way I'm explaining it. If you're doing it with 24 minis, I've only got essentially 12, although there's 13. I just wish I'd never started this. Oh dear God. Right, so basically I need to do twice as many rows as if I had 12. No, I need... I need to do twice as many rows as if I had 24 minis, because I've only got 12, except there's 13. Right, I think we're going to move on, don't you? Anyway, I've started it. I've only done 6 rows so far. There's not very much to show you. By next week, I should have this colourway finished. And I promise not to go through it all again, because I don't think any of us can stand that, can we? Right, I'm going to put this down. I'm going to put it right away over there, so we don't have to think about it anymore. Other than to say, if you wanted some of the, this one, the January yarn, it is only available until the 31st of January. Come the 1st of March, May, no, what's the next month? Oh dear God. I'm going to have to pause for a minute. What is happening? Okay, so I've checked my calendar, and the month that follows January is February. From the 1st of February, the January, bloody hell, this will no longer be available. I don't even know how to explain to you. Right. Have I got anything else to talk about? Oh, yes, I have. Oh, dear. Okay, so you probably know if you've been here before. And if you haven't been here before, there's no need to run screaming for the hills. It's not normally this bad. I am unexpectedly, I thought I had another box. I'm out of one of my tablets, and consequently I'm not sleeping very well. I'm in quite a lot of pain, and that appears to have a strange effect on me. Right, I am running the Starflake knit along for the Starflake shawl, the Stephen West Starflake shawl. This is possibly the worst episode I have ever recorded. I should have had my lunch first. Maybe it's low blood sugar. Right. Hashtag MMStarflake on Instagram. MMStarflakeFO if it's your finished object. There are also 2 threads on Ravelry under the Mouses Makes, on the Mouses Makes page. Again, a chatter thread and a thread that is simply for finished objects. I'm knitting mine. I showed it to you last week, and I was working my way through the brioche. And then I put it down for a few days, and I didn't come back to it. It must have been 3 or 4 days. And when I picked it up again, I thought to myself, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to look at the pattern. I was wrong. I did not know what I was doing, and I absolutely should have looked at the pattern, because I got 3 rows from finishing the brioche section, and oh good grief. What I'd done, because I decided at that point that I would count my stitches, and what I'd done, you have a star shape, and I had, you should increase at the points and decrease at the indents. Thank you for the lady who told me what they were called. But I had decreased at every point, indent and outdent, for want of a better word. So I just made a horrible mess. And I had too few stitches, and well, you can imagine it just wasn't pointing, and it was just all wrong. Horribly, horribly wrong. But it was okay, because despite the fact that I'm apparently completely stupid, I do actually know how to fix the brioche. So where I'd decreased where I shouldn't have done, I laddered down and I fixed it. Though I suspect it still wasn't completely right, because I should have increased on some of those rows. But I got rid of the decreases. It's all okay. So I knit another couple of rows, and by then I was very, very close to being finished with the brioche section. And I looked at it, I was on Zoom at the time, and there was a hole. There was a great big hole that I could stick my thumb through. And I said some very naughty words, and my friend Caroline from the Arrow Bark podcast said, "What's the matter now?" And I said, "There's a big hole." And she said, "Well, have you dropped a stitch?" I had not dropped a stitch. I don't know how I'd ended up with a big hole. I don't know what I did. And it transpired she has also had some challenges with her brioche section and had pulled it all down and started the garter. And that sounded like a very, very good idea to me. So I've done it again in garter. I actually, stabbed myself in the armpit. I actually really like the garter because, and I'm not just saying that because I'm trying to make up for the fact that I've completely and utterly ruined the brioche section. I like it because it follows the stripes here are followed in narrower stripes down here. I've put it onto, I spread it onto 2 needles so that you can see it a bit better. I'm actually rather pleased with it. Apart from these bits, I don't like this bit. But I might feel better about that when it's blocked. If that top edge was straight, I would like it much more. I do love my colours, which is a relief because, let's face it, we all remember the debacle that was my twists and turns that got the colours changed about 50 million times. This was one of the colours that was in the running for that, actually. This one is Cascade Heritage in Ultraviolet. I can't remember the number. And then I used 2 yarns from my stash. This one is very, very, you can just about see that it's got some variegation in it. And then this one has obviously got quite a lot more colour to the variegation. And I'm using the paler one to stripe in this section. So I finished this section, and I'm now, if I can figure out which needle it's on, this one, I'm now on to the next section, which is putting in these sort of wings. He likes his wings, doesn't he? I'm probably about, I don't know, halfway through this one. Then I've got the other side to do, and then I'll move on to the next bit. I should show you the pattern really, shouldn't I, in case you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. Which, to be fair, let's face it, neither do I. Let's see if I can find a big picture. It's quite a big picture. I'll fold it over like this. Ignore my scribblings on the side. This is why I like to print out my patterns, because I can make like notations and stuff on the side. So I think you can just about see I'm on this section here. You can see it's slightly different. And then there's only this bit and these little semicircles and then this bit to go. I would like to have this finished, in all seriousness, by the end of the month. I would very much like, when I record next week's podcast, to go, and here is my finished star flake. If I hadn't mucked about all that time doing pointless brioche that ended up being pulled down, I probably would have finished it. But I'm going to give it a real push and try to finish it. I've got another month. I've got another month before I have to cast on my next shawl in my Stephen West Marathon. But I also have Slipstravaganza Aurora Cabin and the Flying Foxtail wrap on the needles, and I would like to get one of the first two finished if I can before I start the next one, which is, I think, Vertices Unite. Yes, so 1st of March I'll start Vertices Unite, try and get that done in a month so that I can then get either the Aurora Cabin or the Slipstravaganza finished before I start the next one. Is any of today making any sense to you? I really feel like I should have had a sandwich before I started this. Anyway, I've got till the 1st of June to get the Flying Foxtail wrap finished, and because I'm doing that for Alex's Test Your Limits mal, my Yarny Corners Test Your Limits mal, and apparently you don't need to finish it, so I'm not so worried about that because it is brioche, and we all know what's just happened with the brioche, so I should probably be a lot more worried about it than I am. That's got holes in it, but they're meant to be in it. But yeah, that's my plan. This is very, very bad today. I'm here, there and everywhere. I've given myself 2 months for each of my... for 7 of my 9 projects. No, 6 of my 9 projects. I don't know. For each one I've got 2 months. And the plan for each one is to finish it within a month, or as close to within a month as I can, so that I've got another month to finish up stuff before I've got to cast on the next one. Alongside all of that, once I've finished the Starflake shawl, I'm going to cast on the Star Flanket, which I've almost, I'm sure you will all be very relieved to know, made my mind up colour-wise. It's been hard. I have too many favourite colours. I don't know where this blanket is going to go. Probably in my bedroom, which at the moment is terracotta and cream, but has been terracotta and cream for 20 years, and I'm desperate to change it to grey and gold. Consequently, I'm planning on knitting the blanket at the moment in grey and burgundy, because I think that will look quite pretty. But who knows, by the time I actually get round to casting it on, it could be any colour. Let's face it, it could be lime green and shocking pink at this rate. I've no idea. I've no idea about a lot of things. In fact, I don't even remember if I had a big splodge of mascara under my eye. I don't even remember if I've removed it. And I'm not going to get close enough to the camera to see, because then if I haven't removed it and you haven't noticed it, you'll all be able to see it. Right. I'm going to have a sip of my drink. There's no alcohol in it, but I feel like perhaps there should have been. It's on days like this that people think that possibly I may have undiagnosed ADHD. And I can actually understand why today. So, last week, we did a craft room tour. And a question came up afterwards about where do I store my needles. And the answer is, let me turn you a little bit, in this drawer here. So not only where, but how. I have a lot of cheapy Chinese needles in this case. And they're stored in these, I think they're meant for like budgeting for money wallets. They're stored in there size-wise. I had 2, they were folders, they were green folders that the needle sets came in. One was long needles, one was short. I think they were 16-inch and might have been 24, not sure. But they fell to pieces. And then I bought a third set that weren't in a pouch, in a folder of their own. They're exactly the same needles, and on the card on the back of each needle it said that they were made by Addy. So I don't know. I mean, it was $11.99 for a set of, they went from 1.5mm up to 6mm. I really like them. I call them my cheapy Chinese needles, because the first two sets, the ones that were in the pouches, were very definitely, I think they were Coupe was the company, and the little folders they came in had Chinese symbols on and everything. But they are exactly the same as the third set I bought, so I'm wondering if they're all made by Addy, or some of them are copies of the Addy needles. I don't know, but they're all exactly the same. And in actual fact, they're what I'm using on my Starflake. Thought I'd pulled a load of stitches off. I'm also knitting, I knit these socks with them because I've run out of proper sock needles. I don't know where they can all be. On the shelf of shame in bags with things attached to them probably, but we're not going to think about that till we've finished the Starflake. So yeah, these are my cheap needle sets. I've actually got so many in there now that the little, it's a magnetic catch and it won't close properly. Ah, in actual fact, look, I can show you this. This was the case that the first couple came in. These were the long needles. But in here at the moment, I've got my short DPNs, because it means that I can store them in sets. I was keeping them in a bag and driving myself nuts having to try and find all 4, 5 needles every time I wanted them. I don't really use them much. I only really use them if I'm doing a sock on a 9" and I want to do the heel. Then I also have, this is a set of pony interchangeables that I got with some Christmas money 5 or 6 years ago. I'm going to open it very carefully because they tend to, like lemmings, fall all over the floor. I love this set and I've added to it. I've added longer cables, extra cables, more needles. Yet I still never seem to have any needles that I actually need. Hence the fact I've ended up with 3 Chinese needle sets from Amazon. Then in this bag here that I won from Leslie at Not Enough Yarn, was it not? Yeah, it would have been the podcast, not the vlog. In here I have many other needles. In here are various I mean, these are another of my favourites. These are Knit Pro Basics. I really like wooden needles. I know a lot of people don't, but also the benefit of wooden needles is if I'm sitting knitting in the living room with Dave and he's watching the television, although he's partially deaf, he can't hear the needles going tink, 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 tink as I knit, which is apparently very, very annoying. Wooden needles don't make that noise. So that's the needles that I use the most. I have also got, in the bottom drawer of the chest of drawers over there, all my straight needles. But I very, very rarely use straight needles anymore. I find that they hurt my hands. I've lost the knack of what to do with my elbows, because I sit here and I knit and nothing moves really but my fingers. But if I'm using straight needles, there's like elbows and everything involved. It's mad when you think years ago nobody used circular needles. So that's where my needles are, most of them. In the drawer I have got an old set of aero needles, well, it's not a set anymore. It's a case and some of the needles that I've had since, gosh, I must have been about 14 when I bought them. So over 40 years. And over the course of those 40 years, some of them have got broken or lost. I'm ashamed to say I might have thrown some of them away, still attached to the project that I was knitting with them whilst in my teens, and yeah, suffering from like hormone rages. Yeah, I have a lot of needles, but I probably use the pony ones the most. My Knit Pro Novas are my favourite sock needles, and I've got some higher sharp 9 inches that I will use as well. They're probably the ones I use the most, and then the Chinese needles from Amazon get an awful lot of use as well. So I hope that answers that question. Please don't ask me any more difficult questions about how much stuff I have tucked away in various hidey holes. I think that's everything normal knitting wise. There's nothing but shop talk from now on. So if that's not something you're interested in, I apologise for the madness earlier. I have calmed down a little now. And if you don't want to watch the bits about the shop, that's fine. Lovely to speak to you, and I will see you next week. If you are sticking around for the shop, exciting things are happening. I may have got a bit overexcited earlier. First of all, huge thanks to everyone who has ordered so far. If you're planning to order in the future, I'm going to put a little thing on the listings. If you would like your order sent tracked, you can private message me your email address, and I can add that onto when I book it in to send. If you'd rather not do that, which is fine, you know, data protection and all of that, I'm quite happy for you not to. I can put my email in, and then when I receive the email from Royal Mail saying this is going to be delivered between such and such time, I can then message you and say your order is arriving tomorrow between 9 and 11 or 11 and 1 or whatever. So whichever way you would prefer that to be done, I can do that. If you're not bothered about having it tracked, that's fine also. That was the major thing that I needed to tell you. I've already told you that I'm looking at my notes here because I've written comprehensive notes today. I've already told you that there's only a week left for the January. Don't say the word you're looking at, Mandy. Say the word you mean to say. Only a week left for the January yarn. February yarn is already up and in the shop, and I don't actually have a skein to hand to show you, but it's in the Ko-fi shop below. You've seen it before anyway. If you're new here, have a look in the Ko-fi shop. Also going into the shop new for February, and this is the reason that I'm sitting in the semi-dark. There are 3 new yarns that I'm actually quietly very happy with. This is the first one. You may notice that there's a bit of a theme with yarns that are released each month. The reason being, I am trying, it doesn't always work, but I'm trying to follow a colour palette or colours that coordinate within each month for another project that I want to do. So February, the year of the sock prompt is violet, so the yarn was all purples and violets, and I have designed some other yarns to go with it. This one I'm calling Sky Blue Pink because that is a colourway, well, it's a colour that's always fascinated me. you can see a fairly true representation. This is a very loud fluorescent-y pink, and it fades to a pale ladylike pink, and it's speckled with, I don't know if you can make out the proper colour, speckled with lavender, sort of a purple. It's kind of a purpley blue, only a little bit of speckling. Yeah, so that's sky blue pink, which I'm hoping will microstripe. I think microstripes are my favourite thing ever. I love, where's this stuff gone? I love the microstriping here. I'm not so keen on the flashing, but I can live with it. But this microstriping, as I say, I think it's my favourite thing ever. I love it when yarns do that. I love stripes altogether, but those in particular. And I've just realised I never said what I was wearing. It's because I caught sight of it in the camera. This is Anasha by Jennifer Steingars. I'll put it below. Sorry to all the people who already left because they didn't want to hear all the shop wittering. So, there are two other yarns that are going into the shop for February as well. And these are themed around Valentine's Day. Is that right? No, that's right. I need to eat. Okay, this is the first one. This one is pinks and kind of a lavendery colour, I suppose. It's better over here. Might be better over here. This is Romance, anyway. So this is a bit more delicate. Its alter ego is, of course, Passion. Passion is a bit more red, a bit more fiery. So this is kind of reds and pinks, and I don't think the camera's going to pick it up. Maybe there. Burgundy speckling. The light is never my friend, and now the sun is just peeking over a roof and it's going to hit the lens any minute. Let me do something about that. I wonder if that's any better. Oh, that's loads better. There you go. So that's Passion. It's blowing out a little bit still, but you can see the speckling a bit better. And this is Romance. That's much better. So these three will be going in the shop at the weekend. The February Year of Yarn is already in the shop, and the same as with the January yarn, that will come the end of February, that will no longer be available. I started it off a bit earlier because February is a short month. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is I mentioned when I was doing my plans for world domination, I need to tilt that a bit more, that's better, that I was hoping to offer memberships through Ko-fi, working a bit like Patreon, but it's all through Ko-fi because I can work Ko-fi. I'm hoping that they will go live on the 1st of February. I'm having some assistance from the IT department known as Ewan, and I'm hoping that that will all be up and running on the 1st of February. If not, I will let you know next week because our next podcast is due on the 31st of January. But I'm hoping it will all be ready to go up the following day. Memberships will be available. I'm following the same ethos. Is that too highbrow a word? Basically, and I have been questioned about this, my yarns are on Ko-fi at a minimum price, and then you can choose to pay the minimum price, or you can pay whatever you want. The reason I'm doing that is that there have been a lot of times when, and still are, when there's yarns that I would like but can't afford. And so, together with the fact that Ko-fi fees are so much lower than Etsy or having my own website, it enables me to put the yarn at a lower price. So it's not that I'm trying to undercut anybody. My overheads are just smaller, so I can offer it at a lower price. Quite a lot of people pay more than the minimum price, which is absolutely wonderful. But if you can't afford to pay more than the minimum price, or you don't think it's worth more than that, that's fine too. I've priced it at a price that I'm happy to accept. And I want to do a similar thing with the memberships. So whereas a lot of the big channels have got Patreon that's, you know, like £25 a month, I'm going nowhere near that sort of cost. I haven't completely finalised everything yet, but it will be a lot lower. So if it's something that you might be interested in, it's worth having a look. I was kind of told today that Patreon and memberships and so on are begging, which I take that on board. Very nearly stopped me offering the memberships, if I'm honest, but it's a difficult thing. I want to do something that allows you to support me and the channel and allow me to make more content, but I also want to be able to give something back to you. I can't offer discounts in my shop because my yarns are already very discounted. So I'm looking at other things that I can do instead. There is almost certainly going to be a monthly Zoom. Ewan is trying to educate me on how to use Discord. There will probably be an Instagram messenger group, and a few other things that, again, I need to finalise. So, yeah, I hope it's something people will be interested in. If it's not, that's fine. It's, you know, something I'm going to put out there, see how it goes. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's okay. Right. Checking my notes. That's everything. Quite definitely everything. I am calm now. I apologise for my behaviour earlier. It is quite late now. I don't know what time it is. It must be nearly 3 o'clock. So it probably is time I had some lunch. In all seriousness, that could be why I'm a little bit mad today. Right, it's been quite a long one again, so I'm not going to witter on any longer. And I will see you all next week. Until then, happy knitting. Bye, guys.